But wait a second.
So you see a photo from Gary, but he's
Yes.
not in the car. He has to get dressed because it's very early in Florida. So we start Uwe Boll RAW now with a photo only, and then we go to, as soon he's dressed, we go to a video. So
Okay, wait, here we go. Wait, boom, boom, boom. All righty. I'm here.
You look exactly like the photo. No different. So
All right.
okay, let me say this first. Gary Otto is bombarding me with news and whatever. He's fighting for Harris to win the election, and I have to read and listen to this the whole day. So it's better to talk about it. But I see that you're very into it, and I think that this kind of anxious. Everybody's anxious, right? Everybody is like on edge about this election. Whoever I talk to or whatever, right? It's a lot of tension in the air. And I just read that Trump already filed the first lawsuit for voter interference or whatever. So no matter who wins that election, I think it will turn into a total shit show after the election.
Yeah, let me look at my notes here really quick. So I've taken a couple notes. I've sent you a couple messages. Like, for example, they're finding excuses to throw the votes away. Just like I said, people, let's just say you're an old lady and you're filling out the voter registration form, and there's all this information, and it's very small, and you forget to check off a box that says you are not, a migrant or whatever. That box is left unchecked. That one little excuse is what the Republicans are using to throw away votes. And 1,600 votes were initially thrown away, not just because the thing is yeah, some of those people weren't U.S. citizens at the time, but they became U.S. citizens since then. And that's what the 90-day voter law does. It protects people like that, that they do go through the votes. That does get sifted through, but not within a certain perimeter of an election. So there already is kind of like a thing in place. And a lot of people are really upset because let's just say you were somebody who legally went through the process to become a U.S. citizen, and now your vote is being thrown away just based on suspicion of you being not registered. And it's kind of a travesty. It's a purging of the right to vote. And you know what? Let's talk about what Trump said really quick at Madison Square Garden. What is that okay? About the comedian?
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, like I just want to say, like, my last name is Otto, but my mom is Puerto Rican, and that side of my family is Puerto Rican. So let's talk a little bit about Puerto Rico. Now, Puerto Rico is an island that the United States inherited. It is filled with brownies. Oh my God, it's filled with people who speak a different language. And it's true that a lot of cultures out there, like in India and so forth, they like don't even have bathrooms, etc. And maybe they've given and people in the desert have given all brown people this horrible name, but it's not true. There is some culture there, just as in Cuba, there is some culture there. And I think the biggest problem with that island is the fact that the United States, since it inherited it, has not fully funded it properly. It has a very old power system. It has a very old grid. It looks old, and it's people like Trump are very hands off. They see it from afar and they judge it based on, oh, that place looks like shit. It's a shithole that's been degenerated. Well, that's because of internal policy in the United States. It's not because of the state itself, and it's certainly not because of the people. Now,
but is there a quick question about this? Is there a senator from Puerto Rico in the U.S. Senate, or is it not counting for elections or what?
Yeah, no, it counts in the election. It certainly does.
So
yeah,
people can vote, right? So they can vote now after they got insulted in the Madison Square Garden.
Well, the thing is that people need to understand that when people look to the government, well, people can joke and it can be funny all the time, whatever. We joke about stuff. But when we look to the government, We look for stability. We look for an example to be set for our children. We look for, whew, that's a relief because these people who have their shit together have got our back. People don't want to see that kind of comedy at a political event. Look at Ronald Reagan's political events where he had Don Rickles come up on stage. Don Rickles was a class act and had a very tasteful kind of raunchy, but was still class. Class is the key word there. So Trump is fucking he, like I said, left brain and right brain are not thinking together, and somebody puts this comedian up on stage who starts insulting, making funny jokes, yeah, but at an arena where people are looking to be motivated, where people are looking for the future of their country and the future of their children, and then they're being insulted. I don't think that's a very smart move, and I don't think doubling down, driving around in a trash, he's driving around in a giant dumpster,
Yeah.
thinking people will associate this with Biden when they're really just remembering the message that he's giving, that not just Puerto Rico is trash, but the entire United States is trash. So I I want to remind you about 9/11. I want to remind everyone what life was like in New York City under the martial law after 9/11. Now imagine that Trump doesn't get his way in some way, shape, or form, that, like, for example, like he that him and Elon Musk start to gut the system. They start to gut Social Security and Medicaid and all this shit. And they're just playing with the system, and people are suffering as they try to get this balance that even Elon Musk has admitted will happen. So while they're doing all this, people are suffering, and uh, real life hangs in the balance. Don't you think? Don't you think that that counts for something, that we really need stability that they can't promise. We're we're hoping for this huge societal change overnight, and people will suffer, and that's not what people want to see. That's not what people want to hear. People want to hear that people have their shit together. People want to hear that there's a plan, not that there's a semblance of a plan, not that there's comedy in place of common sense. And
No, but let me interfere for 1 second.
yeah,
I think I also have to say, when you saw the speakers at Madison Square Garden, 80% are total racist fucks who are like, I think it's a shame that Trump needs their votes and that he needs their support. And that is, I think his fans or his like surrogates who help him are a lot of times way worse as Trump, to be honest, like in a way, right? Because Trump overall is a more liberal New Yorker, So I mean, that's how he was born, basically. So that's the one thing. So I think also it's a disaster. And then I watched a very good discussion. Bari Weiss, that journalist, female journalist, was in New York Times. She was a lot of times at Bill Mayer, whatever, but she has a podcast now. And she had Ben Shapiro, the Trump supporter, and Jack Smith or whatever, another Jewish high-end journalist. And they talked very good for like 1.5 hours through the whole political system in the US. And the justification what Ben Shapiro did to say he votes for Trump or he supports Trump was basically the whole time that Trump will not do what he says he will do. He said, look, 2020, the 2016 to 2020 Trump also never did what he said he will do. And indirectly, in not doing it, he did a good job for America. He didn't initiate wars. He didn't, the economy was good till COVID hits, whatever. So he basically tried to say, it will be not what he says. He will not deport 10 million people. It will never happen. So, and I agree, he cannot deport 10 million people. He will not even deport 1 million people.
no,
So,
you'd be surprised what they can get away with when they invoke martial law. When they say, like, during 9/11, there was all sorts of shit going on that
how
I've
you
never
want to
seen.
invoke now martial law? You can only say we have to protect. So what Ben Shapiro said is what he expects is this: they will secure the border more, they will not let people in, and they will only deport the real criminals who are already in jail, whatever they deport them. So that's what he says. But no, I don't want to. I'm not on the side of Ben Shapiro on this. On your side on it. I think that of course Harris made a huge mistake and opened the border like crazy, and 8 million people came in the last 3-4 years. But
Yes.
And it's other guy at the discussion was good because he said to Ben Shapiro, he said, look, Trump caters to a lot of radical people, like the radical evangelistical people. And he said also you as a, like Shapiro is a very strong Jewish guy, right? So with the kappa on and whatever. So and he said like, he has a lot of people that hate Jews. Like he has to have them because they hate Jews and they're not supporting the Jews. And he said, but now I come to the main point. Same what Arnold Schwarzenegger said yesterday. He said, if somebody like Trump are not accepting election results, he's unelectable. And with this, I have to agree to it because that means that, and we will see it next week, right? We will see if he loses, the total shit show will start and he will again don't accept the election results. And that's the opposite of democracy. And that alone is a reason that Trump shouldn't be president. I have to 100% agree with it. For me,
Yeah, he doesn't play fair, and he isn't like rooted in reality. He can't admit when he's wrong. It's always somebody else's fault. And when he loses, it's like a flaw in the system or something. It's always an excuse. You know what I mean?
but coming back to the voter oppression, whatever, if you now let voters not vote, or how he knows that these are not Republican voters. I mean, when you leave people off, oh, you cannot vote, how you know that they would vote for Harris? You don't know. So basically, to stop 2,000 people in Pennsylvania or whatever to vote based on what is this? It's like
It doesn't matter.
they're all
And it's
Democratic voters or what they hope.
they're not pulling them based on their party. They're pulling them based on errors. And in that, like, look at the statistics. Like, this number of votes out of this is probably Democratic or whatever. You know, they just want to pull as many as they can. It's as simple as that. It sets a precedent. You know what I mean? Whether or not it's intentional or not, I don't think that they're intentionally pulling Democratic votes. I don't think they're intentionally pulling, you know what I mean? I think they're doing it with good intention, but it doesn't matter because it is still undemocratic. They are still pulling votes from people who are registered voters, and that's the end result. And that's why these systems are in place, because they stop people from making those kind of mistakes, you know?
Yeah, but how
And
you want to tell me, because I didn't understand how they now can make people who are registered voters and they have a US ID, how can they make them not vote? How is that even possible? Like how you want to do it? With what explanation you say we're not taking your ballot, like we're not taking your vote? Like
Well, let's just say that happened and you had an error in your pre-vote or whatever, the thing that you mailed in.
yeah.
There was like a box that wasn't checked off for whatever reason they had to pull your vote. Some people aren't even aware that their votes were pulled. They're getting the letter that happened too late or very late, and they don't have enough time to make it in their schedule. And that's what they hope to, I guess. But some people are, you know, scrambling to figure out if their vote was, you know, not counted and yada yada bing bong, and it just creates more confusion and it creates more work for them on the other side. It's just an extra hoop to jump through. I don't know why they would do that, you know, for an administration that wants to remove so many hoops and regulations. Why would they increase, you know, yada yada bing bong when there already is something in place? It's because they feel that it's all partisan. They won't even let the government pollsters, the people who regulate the polls to make sure there's no cheating. They won't let them in Florida and some other states because they're trying to say that it's partisan, that it's Biden's men and all this other paranoid bullshit. It's all excuses, and they're going to use all of this shit. They've placed a lot of like beacons that they can point to when the election is over to justify, oh, this election was, it could have been stolen, it could have been faked, look at this and this and this. But they're kind of creating the framework for that doubt, this time around so that it looks more legitimized than last time, where they had absolutely no evidence whatsoever. They're creating flaws in this system, like not letting the poll workers in, rejecting votes, and other huge things that will take a very long time to settle, in hopes that they can, like, I don't know, piss off the people, stifle the government, so people are mad enough that they just want to press through whoever's in. And the reason why I'm afraid of martial law, dude, is because think about it like this. Let's just say all this election fighting, one side gets put in, the other side is going to be upset. Some of them are violent and crazy, it's true. And let's just say enough of them fucking, like, coalitions. There's some of them that exist here. Let's just say that all these people started trying to rise up or something. Trump would just create martial law. He would say, there's an attack from within, from the crazy whatever left or whatever, and then I have to invoke martial law. And the same thing that happened in New York City during 9/11, like basically all your laws and rights will disappear because of the whatever he
You
invokes. That's
cannot,
what
because of
happened.
the border, get martial law in all of America going. It's bullshit. It can never happen.
But
No.
what if I'm talking about something else, or what if people are fighting within, what if the Democrat versus Republican shit, it already has gotten violent here in Florida. Um,
You
I
think
don't know
like
what
kind
to,
of civil war disastrous.
like many, just not the whole nation in a huge war, but like little sections of the population going crazy, or huge
Running
protests in big
houses.
cities, things that he doesn't want to see, protests and big events. He wants to, like, quell it down. He wants to quiet it down. So he invokes the martial law, so people have to go inside, and people will be arrested or deported if they don't comply, and they don't have the rights, because during those, like, lockdowns of the nation, all that shit's thrown out the window. And I experienced it, like when you're jaywalking or something. Like I said, you can't jaywalk. They threatened my stepdad to send him back to Austria. They were very demeaning. There was a cop, there was an office, like some soldier or something on every corner. It wasn't like a cop. And they had a big gun, and they were facing, there was one for each direction. And like I said, like, if they had to talk to you, if one was like, "Sir, we need to talk to you for a second," and you were just, and there was people walking on the street, and you're like, "I don't have to talk to you. I have my rights. I got to go to work," and you keep walking, they would like, "Sir, we have to talk to you," and then you're like, "No," and then you keep walking, and then there's people, and you disappear in the crowd, because there's officers in every corner. They'll rope and they arrest the whole block. They'll process each person. They'll let each person go who's not the person they're looking for, and then they'll prosecute the person who got away, to set an example, because of this scared terrorist society. That's what New York was after 9/11. And I'm afraid he's going to use that kind of system to prosecute Democrats, or people he doesn't agree with, or radical right or left wing, whatever. That is scary. And that kind of shit, like, just because people have not seen it, I've seen it. I've seen it. People who lived in New York have seen it. And Rudy Giuliani is Trump's boy. I could see Trump going to the Rudy Giuliani playbook if there's problems, and doing that kind of shit to people, because he doesn't fucking care. And right now, what you said about Trump will make promises for anything, and who knows what we're going to get, because he's a liar. He's a liar, and he can't be taken at his word. So right now we're getting the circus show of, he's like, corporations, big business, you'll get this, you'll get a car, you'll get that, you'll get a car, you'll get that. And it's like, who knows what's real? What's coming is unknown.
Did you watch him with Joe Rogan?
I watched some of it.
Yeah. So and
It was long.
yeah, I know. But that was Natalie. She tries to reach me. I don't know for what, but she had to go to the ear doctor. She has an infection in her ear. So and you know what the funny thing is? The funny thing is that I watched a show from Joe Rogan after the Trump show, a different show with two British comedians, and I think he makes valuable points. And I think also he, and I think also both sides have valuable points, right? So the one thing is that, for example, with how Ben Shapiro says it, he said when Trump was 4 years in office, the world didn't went under. He said a lot of things went better, and he just goes for it that it will be Trump too, like the second term will be similar to the first term and not totally different, even if Trump says it will be totally different. And the other people say, and they make a good point too. They say, what the fuck? Like, how absurd it is that you cannot take a guy's words, as the Trump fans say, you cannot take his words, right? But how insane is this, right? If you have to say he always talks bullshit, and in the end he makes the good thing, right? So that is what the fans from Trump claim. They say, because they have to admit that Trump talks out of his ass 100 lies a day, they have to admit this. Intelligent people like Ben Shapiro, where they have to admit that that's the case. But they say in the very end, the policy he would actually do is better as from Harris, who has no clue, no knowledge, and totally failed the last 4 years. That's what they claim. But on the other hand, when you turn it around, it is also kind of completely insane if you have a politician where you say, as the fan of the politician, you cannot take anything serious he ever says. That is, no other country would ever go ahead with this, right? I mean, you take literally what the politician says, you think, okay, that's his plan, that's his program. Only Donald Trump on the whole earth, even the hardcore African dictator guy who said, I will chop up the other tribe into pieces, everybody knows he means what he says, right? And you can disagree and say, look, are you crazy? You're a mass murderer. Or you say, yeah, I want also to kill everybody else. Let's move for it. But in Donald Trump's case, it's totally absurd. He would say this, we shoot everybody from Guatemala who comes here. But then everybody like, he doesn't do them. But then why you say it, right? So, I mean, what the fuck is this strategy? And I think what came out in the Joe Rogan podcast is this kind of, his strategy is, there is no strategy. He just sits down, enjoys his life and his talk, and he goes and goes and goes and says what's in his mind. I think he always tried to say what the room delivers to him. You know, like whatever, he wants that Kim Il-jung loves him, he wants that Putin loves him, and if he's like in a Madison Square Garden, he hopes that that crowd loves him, and then he says what he thinks plays good, but it doesn't is necessarily a strategy for a politician. So it's kind of a crazy situation.
I just feel like Trump makes it more about him than he makes it about the people. It's always about Trump. It's always about him. And you know what? I think that the people deserve better. The people deserve a plan. People deserve a little more transparency. And you know, if Project 2025 or whatever is the plan, that's a very polarizing plan for the future. And I want to remind all the men out there that we're a generation of men who were raised by women, our mothers, our grandmas, our sisters. Would you really want to take away their choice to have an abortion? What if you got someone pregnant when you were in high school? These people worked hard, and everybody makes mistakes. These people worked hard to raise us, to make us the men who we are today, and they deserve our respect. Some people make mistakes when they're young. They don't deserve to be chastised for it for the rest of their life and have to pay the mortal sin of making a mistake once, because you've done it, we've all done it. And just because they're women, imagine if something was growing inside of you and somebody had raped you or something, and they were just like, that's too bad because it's God's will.
Yeah, but
It's
look,
like that's your opinion. If it's banned at the federal level and it's brought to the states, it's planting a seed of the eventuality, because the collegiate changes. People, you know, it goes Democrat, it goes Republican, that they plant the seeds of it going to the states. Right now, certain states it might be legal, certain states it might be not. A lot it's not. But in the future, it'll swift and change, and it could possibly all go away if it's left to the states because of the instability of swaying politics.
Okay, but how would want Harris now to change this? The Supreme Court ordered this, right?
She's going to codify it into law. And that would, I think that they would codify it into the Constitution. I'm not 100% sure, but I know once they codify it, they can't really override it. And it's certain rights.
I never heard her saying this, that her plan is to make it legal in all states against the wishes of the individual state, right? So, like when Florida says no more abortions, she would overrule
Yeah.
it. It is her
Because no, it's because it's a woman's right to her body. It's not her overruling it. It is in the Constitution. Like, as a man, you have the right, if you want, to chop off your fucking pinky if you want to. You can. Someone's not saying you can't do that because God tells us not to. It's none of their fucking business. It's your pinky. Same thing with the woman and her body. Yeah, it's a baby, and then people are like, "Oh my God." But it really is her fucking choice. Baby is not fully developed. Let's fucking stop instilling our morals and our values onto other people. Some fucking person wants to do fucking whatever. Let them do it like within the legal system. She's not doing it in some fucking crazy way, trying to harm herself. And in the situation, like what was the context of the situation? It's none of your fucking business. It's none of our business. That's
No,
the
but, no,
point.
but you remember that half a year ago, the abortion thing was supposed to be the biggest subject in that election,
Yeah.
and I don't see it anywhere.
It's still pretty big, I think.
Yeah, but it's
Women are,
not a
there's a
lot
lot
of
of women
not
here
in
in
the
the United
TV.
States.
Yeah, but it's not. Look, in 3.5 hours was Joe Rogan. He didn't talk about abortion at all. In
Mhm.
there, when Barry Weiss talked to Shapiro and the other guy, they didn't talk about abortion.
Yeah, because they don't want to highlight the stuff that they've taken away. That's the shit that they fucked up, and they know it. Trump's trying to say, I don't know, I guess the Supreme Court did it. But look, he always denies it and pushes it onto somebody else. He planted the seed so it could happen, and it did happen. And then he could just deniability. He's like a mobster.
Yeah, no, but
He
why the Democrats are not using this now more? Why I don't hear this in the discussions, in the speeches from Harris? Where is it? Where is it? I hear her talking the whole time about Trump is Hitler. The economy will be shit under Trump because the tariffs doesn't work. The migration, we cannot deport people, have a U.S. passport, and blah blah blah. Trump wants to throw everybody out, and that is what they're all talking about. I think the whole abortion subject matter kind of disappeared in this campaign. I,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I see a lot of it. I see a lot of
but
upset people.
where? In what big talk show?
My wife delivers babies for for a living. She works at a hospital and delivers like dozens of babies a day, and we live in Florida. So it's.
Your wife, like personal, on the personal level.
I mean, what
Abortion
if
is huge
I could
subject.
bring her on if you want. I could. She's right over here. I could totally
No,
bring her on.
we can talk about this, but I'm not talking about that it's a super important subject matter. I'm
Hmm.
talking about that it's not in the campaign hard enough used by the Democrats in the last 2, 3 months. It's
Yeah.
not
I
like
feel like they're being outspent, don't you? Like, as Trump's in Madison Square Garden, Trump's all over the fucking place. Trump's going viral with McDonald's, and the Democrats have her going to churches. Yeah, it's got good integrity, but you're right about the fact that she's not pulling the hard punches. The
exactly.
hardest
She
hardest thing I've seen
spent
is
so
like,
much money. She spent 3 or 4 times more as Trump in cash for advertising. She got collected way more money, and I don't see her impact. I think she doesn't understand it. They also refused to go to Joe Rogan because they said he has to come to her, like wherever she is, and interview her there. And he said no. Uh, she campaigns in Texas too, right? And he's in Austin. And he said, no, we're not traveling. Like everybody comes to us, And his interview now with Trump has 65 million views. That is 20 times of any interview she ever gave. In
and I think that Trump's interview is very effective for him. I think that he's a very good PR man. I think he's made a lot of follies like that Madison Square Garden thing and the garbage dump thing. But I also think, on the other hand, even though these are smart ways to get people's attention, that it's inappropriate from somebody who's running for the United States of America. And maybe she knows that. Maybe she knows that something that appears so bizarre, like I said, usually when you look to politics, you're looking at boring old men talking about, stuff that is the foundation of our future. You're not looking at, well, I'm a rock star, well, fucking whatever nonsense. You know what I mean? Over the top 211 stuff. And I want to say that Tim Walz was playing Crazy Taxi, and she has a map in Fortnite, that game. She has the Kamala Harris map in Fortnite. So they're trying, but I don't know. I don't, but both sides on this, both sides I feel like are being ridiculous with that shit. Like Trump and the McDonald's and the Madison Square Garden, and her at the Fortnite and the fucking Dreamcast. Like it's cool, but it's not what I want to see when I look at politics. I don't want to see that shit. I want to see this is going to fiscal budget. I want to see what you're saying. This is about abortion. And I did look up some of the policies, by the way. Let me just look here. Wait one sec. Policies. So I wrote some notes, and Kamal is missing fury. We just talked about that. So JD Vance, I want to talk about Trump for a second. On his side, he said he wants to cut Social Security, but not national defense spending. He wants to cut Social Security. That's what the old people use. They've saved up their money, a certain amount of money that they use during their retirement to survive. If they cut all that, they will have less to survive with. Yet they will not touch defense spending. That's the Republican mindset. That's bullshit. What do you think? Fair?
I think the economic plans of both sides are not good. I think
Yeah.
both. I think his tariffs ideas are idiotic because what the people have to know is the tariffs is what the Americans then pay more. You know, it's like if whatever Sony delivers shit from Japan to the US and you put 20% tariffs on, means like Sony will get the price will be 20% more. It's like for Sony, like maybe they sell less, but they don't pay the tariff. It's not like here are 1,000 TVs from Sony and you pay now instead of $1 million for the 1,000 TVs, you pay 1.2 million bucks because we put the tariffs on. No, it's like the people at Best Buy pay $200 more per TV. So it's a directly negative thing for the customers if tariffs coming up. So that's the thing. But it's also completely bullshit, like to subsidize everything and to go that the US debt is like record high. You know, the debt of the country is like
Well, the debt of the country is high because of fucking wars under Republican administration. That's where we really went into debt, like during the Afghanistan fucking whatever
yeah, it
shit under.
escalates everywhere. It escalates everywhere, and it escalated for the last 60 years. There is not one country in the world what has no debt, right? So maybe Singapore or something, but overall, Europe has huge debt. US has
But
huge
ours has gotten out of control. It's billions, billions, and billions.
no, trillions.
And
It's
and cutting it from the little guy and not the and giving the corporations a fucking cut is not the answer. That's what they're gonna do. Fuck the little guy. Social Security is the little guy, is the old people who are vulnerable and can't
look,
defend themselves.
right now the US has 35.8 trillion debt. These
Oh
are
my God.
3.5 no, this is 35,000 billion. So 35,000 billion. So it means it's completely out of control and nobody will ever be able to pay that back. But there's a difference between continuing building debt and at one point you lose the triple or double A rating, right? Because then it happens like when you go down in the rating system in a banking system, then you have to pay more and more interest for the money. And then the inflation goes high, and that affects, similar to the tariffs, the people. So, and this thing is with the
And that
Harris.
happened under Trump during COVID. Our rating went down because of the way he handled it. I just want to say. So
Yes, and but under not only under Trump, no government handled COVID as we know now in retrospective properly. They all tried to handle it, and they all went in so big debt. And he said that at Joe Rogan. He said all that companies we had to save because otherwise America would be toast. And he's right. That happened. Like without the subsidies for the restaurants, for small businesses, whatever, without that parachute, the COVID would destroy the European and the American economy completely. So I think that the problem is that Harris, and that is when I saw her with Waltz talking about the economy, is that their answer, and it is typical, the German government is left-wing right now, right? The answer is always, we had to print more money, we have to pay it off, right? So it's like this kind of, oh, you need to get more money, you need to get more money. Look at what happened to VW, like VW in Germany. 3 days ago, they released that from 10 plants, they closed 3, and they offer now 18% in the history of Germany, the first time, 18% less per month for people working at VW. That is how bad it is with the car industry in Germany already, from the absolute giant VW. So,
and VW is a big part of your economy.
Yes, the unions went on strike, right? The unions flipping completely out because the unions wanted 11% more per employee. But right now, they're all shitting in their pants because VW said, look, we throw 60,000 people out. You know, we will fire them, that's for sure. And we will throw maybe more out because in Germany, our costs are too high. And so that's the reality. The reality is that we cannot compete with China or India in regards of labor costs. We can compete only if we pay 5 cents an hour and everybody lives in a ditch, right? So for this, Trump's idea of tariffs are a realistic approach, but I think that the word tariff is wrong. What you have to do is basically you have to force China and India and so on to also pay more to their employees in a way, right? Because they're the living costs going up too. And you cannot pay, like 20 years ago, with $100 in India, you could live per month, super good. Now with $100 in India per month, you're poor. You're like basically living in a slum. So now you need in India already $700 or $800 a month to have a living. And this has to get up on the status of Europe or the US, where if you don't make 15 or 20 bucks an hour, you're toast, basically. So, and I think that has to be the game plan, right? To, in a way, commercialize them and at the same time forcing American companies to manufacture more in America. You know, going to Apple and say, you build your chip factory here, and you build also the factory what builds your iPhones here. Because think about Apple. An iPhone went, I remember the iPhone, the new iPhone, iPhone 4, iPhone 5 was 200 bucks. Now it's like 1,800 bucks. Like 10 years later, no other product escalated so far up in regards of money because the people buy it. And I think it's time from this wealth, what Apple created, it's time to share it a little with the population, you know, to say, okay, good. We manufacture right now an iPhone. You know how much it is to build the iPhone in China, a complete new iPhone 15. It costs Apple 80 bucks. That's it. And they're selling it for 1,800. That room is too big. They can spend 300 bucks to build that iPhone and do it in America. And they still make shitloads of money, but they don't, because they're all fucking greedy assholes. And I think what Trump says with the tariffs should be for the American companies. The American companies who use slave labor, child labor, plundering the environment, whatever, and they should get penalty. They should be like, no, you have to create now 20,000 jobs here, manufacture all your iPhones here. You have to manufacture all the computers like Oracle, Microsoft, all that shit what's get from American companies built in the third world should come to America. That would be a job machine. And it would be, and you don't have to have so much profit. That's the other thing. Since technology took over, I think it's just insane. It's when you think yesterday, Facebook reported a 15 billion profit for the last like 6 months, right? Think about it. 15 billion profit is the profit what all the car companies make in total You know, like in the whole world, they don't make more as 15 billion in total altogether. And Facebook, like a fucking internet website, was, you know, they shuffle it in right and left. So, and then, you know, and they even have troubleshooting whom you call, boom, you're in India, you talk to an Indian guy, you know, like stuff like the hotlines, the website, it's all done also there. And that's what I mean. It's like, we cannot like blame China if a Chinese whatever Alibaba is manufacturing something, and then we want to tariff them. That's bullshit. I think we need to keep the same with the German car industry. Why they're suffering so much is because they betted it all on China. They manufactured in China. They sold in China a lot. And now China stole their technology and built the cars themselves for half of the price. Now VW, Audi, BMW, Mercedes, all fucked because they're like, gave it for free to China because China bought a lot of their cars. Now their car sales in China are going drastically down, right? And now they're like, fuck, that's not in our calculation. And
Well, that happened to Hollywood too. They ripped off Hollywood. They figured out how to make Hollywood films through
in
those
China,
subsidies, and now they don't need Hollywood anymore.
yeah, the box office in China is, I think it's almost bigger as in the US now. And they are like, and more as half goes to Chinese productions.
They learned all the techniques that we use to make it look good. They stole all that shit from us through those
Yes,
Hollywood productions, like
yes,
Transformers, the co-productions.
yeah. Yeah, but from the another subject matter, what I think is also like, or two more subject matters, I think it's interesting to talk about. The one thing is, there are talks, today they reported it in Germany, between Russia and Ukraine right now about not bombing each other's infrastructure. So because the Russians basically killed 80% of the Ukrainian plants, like the power plants, 80% are gone. They have only 20% more than the nuclear plants, right? So, and if they can talk about this, why they cannot talk about peace, right? There are actually a commission by Qatar, the Emirate of Qatar, has Ukrainians and Russians in the room right now discussing over the winter, the power plants need to get like a break, basically. We cannot bomb them anymore. And they're actually negotiating this. And I think it's so insane to think you can talk about this, but you cannot talk about like stopping it in total. Like, I mean, what the fuck are we doing? You know, so that's the thing what makes me insane, that both sides say we cannot negotiate, and then they're negotiating shit like this. They, by the way, negotiated also that a lot of the harvest this year, because they have all that here corn, whatever, like the wheat harvest, it went out with Russian help and got distributed between Ukraine and Russia. So if you can work together on this kind of shit, then it's for me total baloney.
I
If
think
you
that this
cannot
is
sit there and negotiate to stop that war, what only is like destroying everything.
the only thing I have to add to that is just I want to say that it's so sad that it's come to this because Ukraine and Russia really are like brother and sister. They're like the same people. They have the same language, like you say, they have the same culture. Their cultures were integrated a long time ago. And it really feels like it's like that, like it feels like a civil war, like if Texas was like attacking, the United States, etc. So I wish that they would be like that, like what you say, more humane. I wish that we could get back to that.
Yeah.
It sucks.
And then
Yeah.
the second thing is, I think also the lie about not the lie about global warming, but so when you see the media right now, so in Spain were huge rain floods yesterday. You can watch New York Post, wherever you go. So rain and a few cities in Spain got completely underwater, flooded away, 100 people dead, thousands of cars flying around. And now this news get totally instrumentalized basically by Greta Thunberg and everybody else, right? Look, the global warming, you know? And basically stop using your car right now and reduce your own CO2 to zero, or more cities getting flooded. And that's just primitive bullshit, because
Yeah.
whatever we do now, even if you and me and 100 million other people right now would go to zero CO2, we're not heating, we're not driving, we do nothing, we never fly an airplane again. That flood would come in 3 years again. It has nothing to do, we cannot stop the process, right? And natural disasters like floods or like tornadoes and stuff like this, they escalated. There are more because of global warming. That is 100% true. But the idea that we can reverse this in now having only our little solar panels running, that's just like a cheap trick. Every catastrophic incident, every hurricane in the US gets abused by the Greens, basically, to say we have to stop with anything. And they completely ignore that China alone has 1,500 coal mining facilities with coal plants, right? 1,500. So if we now in Germany, we have, I think, 3 coal plants left, no more gas plants, no more nuclear plants. Sorry, but we did enough. And we're not moving the needle if we now die and don't consume anything. I switch my TV off, right? So it's just like that is pissing me off, because there's a horrible flood in Spain, but it's not that this happens every week, and it's also not directly connected to this kind of idiotic theory that it's all about the CO2.
Hold on. I just want to say, I actually agree with Greta Thunberg, but I think it's a shame. I think it's a shame that she comes across in such an uncouth, uncool way. She comes across with such extremism, and a lot of them really do, because they want to have their voices heard, that they're shouting as loud as they can, and they're talking about these extreme things. And people stop listening at some point because they're rolling their eyes. They're like, oh boy, you again. And then they stop listening. They stop listening to what they're saying. And they could have a point. There could have a point behind the rage, behind the shouting to the heavens, behind the 211. But we don't listen to it, and we discount it as being bullshit, or find reasons to just think about something else because they come across as a lunatic. Now, if people would just temper their reactions, because Greta Thunberg only appeals to like 50, 60-year-old, like in the hippies, like older people. She doesn't really appeal to the youth. They need someone with that same message that appeals to the youth. You know what I mean?
No, we
Not
need a
somebody
real
who's like,
talk.
shame on you, you should feel bad about it, blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? Because I do with the CO2, yes, it is going to change the way that storms happen, the way that winds process. For example, here in Florida, the reason why we have these hurricanes and the cyclones, like, so normally we have a hurricane, but the winds are greater because of the global warming, and the winds push the storm out further towards the land, and then the heat that's now heightened during this season because of the global warming turns the thing into a tornado, because the heat turns it into a tornado, and then it hits land, and then it's destroying all these houses in the infrastructure that it shouldn't even be here. It shouldn't be here in the first place. It should be somewhere else. So it's like all this weather is hitting places that shouldn't hit, and things are happening in places that shouldn't happen, that we're not prepared for. Like California could be underwater, Florida could be underwater. Who fucking knows? But people like Greta Thunberg, probably, she's smart but autistic. You know what I mean? She probably sees the big picture, but she has no social skills, no social, um, uh, and people like us see her and they're like, wah, wah, wah. Get it? I mean,
Yeah.
no, because I
No,
really believe global warming is real. You believe that once too, my friend, right?
no, I totally believe it. But the reality is that when I dig deep into it, and the reality is this, let's say, so the US is responsible for 15% of the pollution worldwide, right?
China is, but yeah.
Yeah,
a
but
lot.
but the US, China is more, right? So
Yeah.
and India is more because they have 1.5 billion each on humans. We can only help this downfall of the civilization through global warming or weather change and all kinds of stuff if this happens from all of us. And of course, like third world countries can do less, first world countries have to do more. And that works only through a CO2 tax, right? A worldwide taxation of, like, when China has 1,500 coal plants, that they have they have to buy that CO2 certificates, basically have to pay for it. So if you want to pollute more, you have to pay more. And that works only in the way in the UN, right? So because you need all the countries in one pot. And then you can basically say, of course, if you're now in Rwanda and you have absolutely basically nothing, and you have not even a plant, you don't have electricity, you only have little batteries going, then you participate from that pot in that you get money for solar powering. You get, because the richer countries who want to pollute more pay more. And there is a system what they built it with CO2 certificates already in the stock market and everything, but it got completely, as usual, completely abused, and they only pocket money with it, but the money doesn't. The idea was in the beginning. Yeah, bless you. I have to
No,
stop.
sorry.
I have to go and get water. But in the beginning, the idea was that it's kind of a redistribution of wealth system based on pollution. And then there is the benefit is, of course, way higher for China to go from 1,500 plants to 1,000 plants, and to go back to nuclear if they want, because it's no CO2, right? Or solar or wind. But that would accelerate, it always accelerates things faster if a lot of money is in the game. What you can gain or what you have to pay, right? And then, but in the very end, all that big countries or whatever, they never agreed to it, and they never got a deal done that it's like working. So now Trump wants to go back to drilling, because his thing is, he knows that it's shit with oil and everything. He knows that it's shit, but he looks only, he's 80, and he looks only on the short-term profit possibilities if you sell your gas and oil, right? And that's bad. That's very bad. And he should be the driving force, because countries like Russia, the only thing they have is gas and oil, right? So he should be the driving force to get off gas and oil together with Europe, and then getting other countries in the boat, because then ultimately also you weaken people like Putin. Like the power play, I read yesterday that the oil, like gas, was stopped because of the sanctions from Russia, right? But the oil production of Russia was 18% up last year in sales in comparison to before the Ukraine war. So they are not like in a ditch. They're making 18% more on oil sales worldwide, to France, to Belgium, because it's not part of the sanctions. So the idea is, we sanction Russia and weaken them. That went into no man's land. They only don't sell gas to us right now, but they sell like this LNG, this liquid gas, and they sell oil. And Belgium, France, Spain, they're all still getting it. So how you think Putin is starving out and you squeeze Putin out of the war, if that's your thing? And I think that's the main problem. The main problem is, we have everywhere with Harris and Trump, we have this, we have nobody who sees the good sides from the one perspective, like, okay, what was good at Trump, yeah. And you have like, it's very, like, when you dig a little deeper in this individual subject matters, it's this kind of like, they're all ego shooters. They only think about, oh, I get elected, I want to be president, I want to be minister of secretary of state, whatever. And they're fighting against each other. And my gut feeling is that the results, they don't really are interested in it. They're only interested to win elections, to have their bodies in their jobs, both parties, and also in Europe. And then they do whatever the fuck they want, because they know, well, in 4 years, everything turn the table again. But I want to have my benefit out of that 4 years, you know? So that's the bad thing in politics. And that, but it's also the way into doomsday, right? It's like, because there are problems, we need to face and work together on them, because ultimately it brings nothing if we all are dead. You know, I don't want to live in a thing where Elon Musk world, where he already twittered it today again. Mars will be the only thing you can live in like a few hundred years. If that's his game plan, he should never work in politics. He should be like pushed out of the thing, right? But if he actually thinks that this is the solution, that we destroy Earth completely and all living on the Mars, and not like, let's save Earth and make it good still, right? We will
Yeah.
not stop melting of the glaciers, whatever. We will not stop that. We can do whatever we want. That is already a process going, but we can make Earth still livable if we get our shit together. So, yeah. Okay, so let's do one after the elections. And
Okay, it's been a great show, guys. Please like and follow the show and each of us on Twitter. Uwe Boll RAW Podcast Network. This is Gary Otto and Uwe Boll signing out for the big picture. Peace.
bye. And
Bye-bye.
go and vote, everybody.
Yes, go vote. Take care.